Good morning. It's Vision Pro pre-order day, which means that this is probably a day we're going to remember for a long time. February 2nd, January 19th, these are significant days in the history of Apple, I hope. Because if you go based on the current sentiment as people are now putting in their orders for Apple Vision Pro, it's kind of hard to tell whether people think that this is an iPhone moment or like a Google Stadia moment where it's just going to get forgotten about and discontinued. So yeah, from what I can tell, there's a lot of back and forth. People are excited, people are nervous, some people are hating on it. And in the past 2 days or so, we've found out that a lot of big developers aren't supporting apps for the Vision Pro, such as YouTube, Spotify, and Netflix. It's all a bit overwhelming, but let's cut through the noise with one simple fact. The iPhone, when it came out, sucked. Here is said iPhone, and when this thing came out, it had no wallpaper backgrounds, it had no app store, you couldn't rearrange the apps, you couldn't add additional apps. It only has one camera on the back and it can take photos, and that's it. No zoom, no panorama, no video. It was limited to 2G Edge, completely missing out on 3G networks, and it was the most expensive subsidized phone on the market. But none of that stopped the iPhone. And in the same way, I think that Vision Pro has the potential to do the same thing. I'm sure that this first iteration, and especially on launch day, is going to feel a little bit limited. But what made the iPhone work was developers, third parties, pushing the boundaries of what you can do with that device. Vision Pro, I think, falls into the same category, but there are absolutely going to be those early Apple product issues that we saw with the iPhone, with the iPad, and with the Apple Watch. And I'll tell you what, I want to be there every step of the way. So I'm going all in. 1 terabyte Apple Vision Pro. Why did I do that? Well, to be quite honest, I have no idea how much storage we are going to need for this thing, so I said screw it. Let's go all the way. And I know I never really do that. I typically advise caution with storage because their prices are so outrageous. So $400 for a terabyte definitely hurt me, but that is just my sign of commitment to this new platform because I want this to work. All that being said, I do want to dive into the tech specifications for the Apple Vision Pro because we've learned a couple of new things. And I'll be honest, there is one thing that's standing out as a concern. So one of the big things that we learned, of course, is that we have 3 storage capacities, 256, 512, and a terabyte. Now we know the M2 chip is capable of supporting more than that. You can add 2 terabytes of SSD storage to the MacBook Air, and similarly, you can upgrade that to 24 gigabytes of unified memory. But if we go down to the chip section for Vision Pro, you'll see it has 16. So weirdly, you can't actually max out this M2 chip. I would have thought that 24 gigabytes of RAM could potentially be useful. I mean, I probably wouldn't order it, but it's interesting that all Vision Pros have 16. No variation. But the other thing that concerned me just a little bit was actually a bit further up here, and that is the display. You'll see they are boasting 92% DCI-P3 coverage, but every other Mac for the last 7 years has had full P3 color support. So it's a little weird that Vision Pro for $3,500 with these incredible 23 million pixels on these micro OLED 3D display system doesn't have P3 coverage the same way that a Mac does. And that means that some people, probably not me, because let's be honest, 92% is going to be fine for doing YouTube videos and watching movies. But some people that might have been looking at this to do really immersive color work or video editing or mirroring their Mac's display to blow it up really big, that might be a little bit disappointing. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. If you're someone that needs P3 support to ensure that you have accurate colors every single time, does this worry you? But in that same section, there is another blurb that makes me feel a little bit relieved, and that is the video mirroring. So Apple is saying 1080p AirPlay for mirroring your view in Apple Vision Pro to other devices like a Mac or an Apple TV. That I think is going to be really exciting. And I've been wondering for a long time how it was going to work for us to make videos on this thing, because I want to show you guys what I'm doing. But I suspect Apple knows that, and they know that in order to get people on board with these experiences, they're going to have to see what the experiences look like. Now, another thing that Apple released today was the actual weight of Vision Pro, which is something that I'm definitely concerned about from a Gen 1 product perspective. So this thing weighs 600 to 650 grams. Now compare that to the Meta Quest 3, which weighs 515 grams. And yeah, this thing is definitely going to be heavy. And we're already seeing reports that the weight of this thing is causing neck strain after just a couple of minutes. So this is definitely going to be a major issue with using this product long term. So this was definitely a weird pre-order day because we're finding out all of this information literally as we're trying to place orders for this thing. Oh, and we're also finding out about accessories now. Like I mentioned earlier that I was concerned it didn't seem to have a travel case. It does, but it's $200. It looks to be a padded travel case, pretty standard affair, but $200 for that. $200 if you want an additional battery to hot swap them. You can buy optical inserts on their own for $100. You can buy additional light seals for $200. That was another thing I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute. What happens if you have multiple people that want to use Vision Pro, but your light seal doesn't fit them? $200. Bit much. And then they've got a third-party battery holder. That's just giving BlackBerry belt clip, by the way. That's all I can see. Now, I do want to make sure that I'm not coming across as overly negative here, because obviously there are some things that I'm a little concerned about. But overall, what we're talking about here is a completely new platform. This first Vision Pro product itself is almost irrelevant, because when you look at the iPhone 2G, this was the foundational experience, but the details are very rough around the edges. And I think we're going to have that with Vision Pro, but I think we have to stay the course and see where it goes, and more importantly, see where developers take it, because that was part of what made the iPhone experience work. Once Apple added the App Store in 2008, it changed everything, and it made devices like the iPad and even the Apple Watch feel a lot more rewarding and enjoyable to use. And they've all had weird stuff at launch. I mean, do you remember the original iPad where it had very few apps for it? So most of the apps were like the little iPhone version, and then you could hit the dots and blow it up to take up most of the full screen, but it was still running an iPhone app and it looked really bad. We are already experiencing that with Vision Pro, as most of the apps that work on it are just going to be iPad apps running in that virtual environment. So it's literally going to be exactly the same as that from 14 years ago. But there is a key difference between all of those launches and Vision Pro, and that's the price. $34.99 is way out of the realm of possibility for an untested product. Most people are going to look at that and say, yeah, okay. When they get it below $2,000 and it's really cool, maybe I'll take a look. But for right now, this is a very small pool of users. And that's something that Apple is definitely aware of. We heard in the lead up to this pre-order day that there were only going to be 60 to 80,000 units. So it's no surprise that shipping times have slipped well into March. However, if you want to pick up in store, here in Los Angeles, nearly every store has availability for the 512 or 1 terabyte configurations. Now, the 256 does in fact appear to be completely unavailable. I suspect that most people weren't willing to pay the extra money on top of what's already $3,500 just for more storage, when we don't even know how much storage we're gonna need, which is fair. You know what? I can't blame them for that. But man, I was sitting there like, okay, is it worth spending the extra money? And I realized, what if at 256, I'm having to go in and delete stuff constantly on my $3,500 product? I don't want that. And using an external storage device, which I do all the time on the Mac, definitely is gonna be less practical. So I said, screw it. I don't want to take any chances. A terabyte. But the single biggest question that I've had since WWDC 2023 is, what am I going to use Vision Pro for? it doesn't seem like there's any like crazy new thing that you can do with Vision Pro. A lot of it is existing applications for the iPad, existing applications on the Mac. But I don't see that as a limitation. This is taking the stuff that you do on your laptop every day and putting it around you in the world. It's breaking free from those four corners of a display and giving you a much bigger playground to do all the same stuff that you already do. This year is a year of big changes and new directions in technology. We've got AI devices like the Humane pin and the Rabbit, and they offer a complete rethink of what a smartphone or a communication device can be. But Apple's vision, as ironic as it is for how high tech it is, isn't that radical. It's doing the things that you already do in a new way. And to me, that sounds more promising. I don't personally believe that there will be that many people that want to completely reshape the smartphone experience. That's certainly not what Apple did 17 years ago with the iPhone. They took the experience of texting, emailing, calling, taking photos, and they consolidated it and made it user-friendly. That is what Vision Pro is trying to do with spatial computing. And I personally think that it has a lot of potential. The pitfalls, sure, they will definitely be there. And we're absolutely going to go into them in about 2 weeks' time. But long term, as a concept, what makes Vision Pro so appealing to me is that it's not trying to completely change the way that you do things. It's not trying to reinvent everything for the sake of reinvention. Will it ultimately be a commercial success? I don't know yet. But I personally believe that this is the future, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and to show all of you guys. So if you're excited too, make sure to get subscribed. There's going to be lots to talk about. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.